What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, I'm actually going to be recreating one of my earlier videos I had on the channel, and I'm going to be showing you guys how to change the oil in a 2017 Audi A4, and this is specifically the B9 platform. Now it should be very similar to a bunch of different Audis or Volkswagens in general, or even Porsches, that have a top-mounted oil filter as opposed to one that has it on the bottom. Now you've seen the video that I'm going to be using something called a fluid extractor, rather than putting the car up on jack stands and then draining it the conventional way through the oil pan. In my opinion, it's a lot easier and it's a lot cleaner to use the fluid extractor, and regardless of the method you choose, you're getting pretty much the same amount of oil removed from the engine bay. So if you're curious, I'll put a couple videos in the description that show you that comparison about how oil extracted from the conventional wet method and how it compares to oil that's extracted using the fluid extractor. Overall, it's a pretty simple process. It takes about 30 minutes or so for you to go from start to finish. And a great question that I was asked constantly was, what do you do with the used motor oil? So if you're here in the United States, after you put in the new motor oil, you're going to have that container that motor oil came in. All you do is you just unscrew your fluid extractor and you just pour that used motor oil into that container. And then you can take it to any Advanced Auto, Pep Boys, any automotive store essentially, and you can recycle it for free. Or you can even contact your local township and they might have a recycling center that could take care of it for free. I'm not sure how it works internationally, but that just might be something you have to check for your local laws and guidelines in terms of how to recycle oil. Overall, it's a pretty simple job, and with that said, let's get started.
Start by warming up the engine until the oil temperature gets to around 140 degrees Fahrenheit. This will help make extracting the oil a lot easier. And just for reference, I like to change the oil every 5,000 to 7,000 miles compared to the recommended 10,000 miles by Audi. It just helps to keep the engine running a lot smoother. Next, check how much oil you have. So cars in North America do not have a dipstick, so you'll need to check for the oil using the onboard computer. Now at the minimum you should have about 5 quarts, and at the maximum should be about 5.5 quarts. If you're running below the minimum, you might want to check for leaks, especially if you've been driving a lot, because running low with oil can just cause engine problems. And this is also a good indicator as to how much oil we should expect to extract during the extraction process. Now before we begin, check that the oil you purchase is the right one for your car. There's a silver engine tag that lists the VW spec. In the case of my car, it's VW50200, and then just compare this spec against the spec on the back of the bottle. You can also find that spec in your user manual. Now depending on what region you're in, you might not have the same exact oil that I'm using here. Here in North America, I'm using the Castrol Edge 5W-40, which is the oil that Audi recommends. Using a flathead, carefully remove the dipstick cover and set it aside. It's also a good idea to loosen the oil cap to help with the extraction process. Don't remove the oil cap just yet, but just twist it so that it's loose. Now carefully insert the extraction tube into the dipstick hole. It should go in fairly easily without any resistance. Now don't force it in there, because if it breaks, it's going to be a very costly repair to get that broken piece out. So once you do start to feel some slight resistance, stop pushing, don't advance it any further, and then at this point it'll be safe to start giving your extractor a few pumps. And you can confirm that it's working because you'll see some oil flowing through the tube and then into the tank. And then every few minutes give it a few pumps to keep the extraction process going. In the beginning of the process it's going to be a very silent operation, you won't really hear anything, but then once you start hearing sort of a whooshing sort of a noise, you'll know that there's little to no oil left in the After you pour the new oil in, drive the car around for about 30 minutes, and then turn it off and let it sit for about 5 to 10 minutes on a flat surface so your onboard computer can kind of calibrate the oil level. Now go ahead and check your oil level. If it's not at max, then you can add about 1/4 of a quart at a time until it gets to that max line. You don't want to add too much oil because if you overfill it, that could lead to engine trouble. And then just take your time with it, just recheck and adjust as needed. After you've confirmed the oil level, go ahead and reset your oil change interval like you see in the video. And that's it guys, that's the last step, and now you've officially changed your oil.